It's the late 70s, a cool night in Turin, Italy. Streetlights glow, a soft amber as the rumbles of an engine echoes down a narrow street. Suddenly, an Alfa Romeo screams by, its V6 singing a tune only an enthusiast could truly understand. That sound? It's the promise of agility, speed, and a touch of Italian flair. You've just witnessed the dawn of an era where the V6 became more than just an engine, it became a statement of intent. Fast forward to today, and we're diving into the top V6 engines that define what makes this layout so iconic. Number 1. The Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. A 2.9-liter twin-turbocharged V6, an all-aluminum beast that's been crafted with love by Ferrari technicians. And listen, when you hear the name Ferrari in the mix, you know you're in for something real special. This V6 isn't just about power, it's got finesse too. It shares the same bore and stroke length as Ferrari's F154 V8, which means you're getting a little slice of that Ferrari magic repackaged for something a bit more practical, but no less thrilling. It cranks out a jaw-dropping 503 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. That's enough to launch you from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.9 seconds. Now, Alfa Romeo didn't just focus on raw power, though. They were smart about weight, too. Carbon fiber is everywhere it counts. The roof, the bonnet, even the prop shaft. This thing is designed to be light, nimble, and ready to take on those twisty roads. We're talking about a weight of just 1,524 kilograms, which is seriously impressive for a car packing this kind of punch. It means that you're getting an agile, responsive ride that's going to make you feel like you're in something way sportier than a four-door sedan. Alfa Romeo used carbon fiber strategically, like on the front splitter that adjusts for extra downforce when you need it. This isn't just a flashy piece of tech, it's about giving you more grip, more control, and ultimately more fun when you're pushing the limits. And the 8-speed automatic transmission, it's smooth, but when you hit those aluminum paddle shifters, you feel every bit of that performance-focused engineering. Number 2, the Nissan GT-R. It's got the kind of power that makes your average sport car look like a tricycle next to the Harley. The 2020 pushes 600 horsepower. That's enough to hit 315 kilometers per hour, and it goes from 0 to 97 kilometers per hour in 2.48 seconds. The GT-R's engine is built to handle everything that you throw at it, with reliability that's second to none. And sure, maybe it doesn't have the luxury trim of a Porsche 911, but it's got something better: guts. This engine is the kind of thing that makes even the casual driver sit up and take notice. Take the interior, for example. The redesigned dashboard and quality materials make it feel modern without losing that raw, performance-focused edge. And those Recaro seats, they're as comfortable on long drives as they are supportive when you're whipping around corners at high speed. Number 3, Lotus Evora. Now, the Lotus Evora might not scream supercar at first glance, but trust me, this beauty has one of the most reliable sports car engines you could ever ask for. The 3.5-liter 24-valve 2GR V6 from Toyota. Yeah, that same engine that keeps the Camry running strong is what's under the hood right here, with a few tweaks to spice things up. You see, Lotus took that V6 and supercharged it, which means you get 430 horsepower in the GT 430 Sport Edition. It's not just reliable, folks, it's got kick. You're looking at 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 3.7 seconds. Imagine that, a Toyota Camry engine doing that kind of sprint. It's like your dad's dependable sedan suddenly got into powerlifting. Sports cars are usually all about exotic, high-strung engines that need constant attention. But the 2GR V6, it's been tried, tested, and proven. Number 4, the Mercedes M276. The M276 has that deep, satisfying growl that only a well-built V6 can deliver. It's not over the top, but it lets you know it's there. The M276 is a twin-turbo 3-liter V6 that cranks out 385 horsepower. This thing gets the AMG GLC 43 from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 3.8 seconds. That's right, 3.8 seconds. It's the kind of speed that makes you rethink how fast you actually need to get to the grocery store. But hey, when you've got it, why not use it? And that top speed, a solid 250 kilometers an hour. It's not just fast, it's thrilling in the kind of way that reminds you why you love driving in the first place. But what really sets this engine apart is its versatility and reliability. Mercedes didn't just stick it in one car and call it a day. No, they put it in everything, from the CLS 400 to the GL 450 and even the E 450. Why? Because it works. Number 5, the 1987 Buick GNX. Back in '87, Buick teamed up with McLaren Performance Technologies. You heard right, McLaren, to bring us the GNX, or the Grand National Experimental. And let me tell you, they were not playing around. Under that hood, you've got a 3.8-liter turbocharged V6 engine. Now, Buick claimed that it had 276 horsepower, but real heads know that this thing was cranking out closer to 300 brake horsepower. And let me tell you, that's enough to make even the big boys sweat. It did 0 to 97 kilometers an hour in 4.6 seconds. That's faster than a Ferrari F40 or a Porsche 913 at the time. And get this, it covered the quarter mile in 12.7 seconds at 182 kilometers an hour. That's not bad for a Buick that costs less than 30 grand when it rolled out of the showroom. For that kind of price, you weren't just getting a car, you were getting bragging rights. Number 6, the Jaguar XJ220. You see, back in the early 90s, Jaguar had a vision, a supercar that could go toe-to-toe with the legends. And they pulled it off in a big way with the XJ220. Originally, the concept car was set up with a big V12 and all-wheel drive. But by the time it rolled out in '92, it had evolved into something more streamlined. Jaguar swapped out that V12 for a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. Why, you ask? Well, the engineers had to deal with things like engine weight, size, and even emission regulations. The V6 was lighter, more compact, and simply made sense given the circumstances. The twin-turbo V6 pumped out a solid 542 horsepower. That's enough to take you from 0 to 97 kilometers an hour in 3.6 seconds. Yeah, that's blink and you'll miss its speed. And top speed? 342 kilometers an hour. That thing wasn't just fast for its time, it was one of the fastest production cars ever. At least until the McLaren F1 came around and then stole the crown. But even so, the XJ220 had a year of glory where it held the top spot. Not bad for a car that started as an after-hours project by a bunch of Jaguar engineers who were just passionate about making something wild. Now, the XJ220 wasn't perfect. It got rid of those fancy scissor doors and the all-wheel drive, which might have disappointed some early fans, but what it did keep was that authentic, raw mid-engine supercar feel. And man, did it look good doing it. Sleek lines, low stance, and a roar that could wake the neighborhood. This car was everything that a 90s supercar was supposed to be. Number 7, the Alfa Romeo 156 GTA 3.2-liter Busso V6. This 3.2-liter V6 packs 247 horsepower, and it'll get you from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a smooth 6.3 seconds. Now, look, I get it. By today's standards, that might not sound blistering fast, but let me assure you, back in '01, it was the equivalent of getting a text back right away. It was a thrill. And the top speed of 250 kilometers an hour, this thing was made to push boundaries. But here's what sets the Busso V6 apart from the rest. It's not just about speed, it's about how it makes you feel. You've got this incredible buttery smooth delivery. Honestly, it's like driving a symphony. Every rev feels composed, each shift like a perfectly timed crescendo. People describe the revs as being smooth as butter, and for good reason. The engine doesn't roar, it sings. Now imagine the feeling of emerging onto the highway and hearing the throaty exhaust note harmonize as you hit the higher RPMs. That is the Busso magic, my friends. This engine wasn't just slapped into the 156 GTA for show. It made the car a wolf in sheep's clothing. One moment you're cruising comfortably, and the next, you've got the kind of pull that feels like a gentle giant giving you a push. Nothing jerky, just seamless waves of torque. Alfa Romeo took the time to make the rest of the car worthy of such an engine. We're talking nipped and tucked bodywork, wider arches, and a sharper design. It's like a tailored Italian suit that fits just right. And don't even get me started on the steering. It was so precise that Alfa claimed it was the most direct steering on a mass-produced car at the time. You could sneeze and the car would almost turn itself. Seriously, the connection between the road and your hands was something special. Number 8, Lancia Stratos. It's the early 70s, and Enzo Ferrari himself hesitated about letting these engines out into what he saw as a competitor. But eventually, he got on board, and that's where the magic started. The 2.4-liter V6 Dino engine churns out a solid 190 horsepower, which might not sound like today's numbers, but let me tell you, it had enough pep to rally this car from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.8 seconds. And for a car that's out there getting beat up on dirt roads and flying over jumps, that's what you call impressive. And here's where the Stratos stands out. It wasn't about speed, it was about agility, about handling that would make a dragonfly jealous. It won the World Rally Championship 3 times in a row, in '74, '75, and '76, proving that it wasn't just a pretty face. The Ferrari Dino V6 wasn't just any engine. It was tested on tracks, then road cars, and then the rally scene. It saw it all. Kind of like that uncle who's been everywhere and has stories for days. And man, the lightness, just 100 kilograms lighter than the Ferrari 430 that it later inspired. It's a difference that you feel every time you put your foot down on the accelerator. It's not just a car, it's an experience. It darts, it weaves, and sometimes it's just flat out unpredictable, like a good old dragonfly on caffeine. Number 9, the second generation Ford GT. After taking a decade-long break from the original GT, Ford decided to go in a whole new direction with a 2016 reboot. Instead of the bulky V8 or a flashy V12, they went for the 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged EcoBoost V6. Why? Well, because they wanted it to go fast, and this compact engine gave them all the room they needed for that sweet aerodynamic finesse. This isn't your granddaddy's V6. We're talking 647 horsepower, later bumped up to 660 for the 2020 model. This means that GT can go from 0 to 97 kilometers an hour, about 60 miles an hour, in just 3 seconds. Yeah, you blink and you missed it. But it doesn't just stop there. The GT's top speeds hit a blistering 348 kilometers an hour, or 216 miles an hour. It's compact, it's efficient, and it allowed Ford's designers to craft a car that cuts through the air like a hot knife through butter. The compact EcoBoost V6 made way for sleeker aerodynamics and better weight distribution, which means that you're not just going fast, you're handling corners like you're on rails. Number 10, the Honda NSX, the second generation. Under the hood is that 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6 engine. Yeah, it's got some kick, pumping out a solid 500 horses. But wait, this thing isn't just about raw power. It's got 3 electric motors thrown into the mix, working in perfect harmony like a barbershop quartet, bringing the total output to a hair-raising 573 horsepower. And get this beast can do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 2.7 seconds. That's quicker than me downing my morning coffee, and that is saying something. Have you used any of these cars before? And were there any left off the list that you think we shouldn't have? Well, let us know in the comments below.